would be extremely interested.
You guys are hot, just to let you know.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that.
Or not.
Mine. Thing I really didn't expect to hear from you, but that's okay. Any of us did.
Nights are good nights. Where is that? I'll find it. I think they just need to get.
Well, I
on
linked
their
up with her
Facebook
as far
web.
as a friend status on Facebook, and
That's good.
I'll ask her one of these days. Been friends with Emma for a while.
Yeah.
Ran out of hard copy, all this sort of stuff, just so I don't.
I'm buying into the tech. Huh?
Yeah, no,
Fight the
I don't-
fight. Fight the fight.
fight the good fight, but have a backup plan. Good boot up.
You need some juice.
No, it's just dead.
Meeting will come to order. Let the record show that Kathleen's not here. Need a motion to excuse. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Join me at the Pledge of Allegiance. Emmer. Go for it. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are recording the program. Additions or corrections to the agenda. There's one interlocal agreement with the Port of Ephrata has been added. We have no presentations or comments, so we will move on. Need a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Fight it out.
I'll second.
Questions about anything? Just nothing? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any comments on the staff committee and agency reports? Rob, could you give us just a quick update on the water tower up there, please?
We finished filling the reservoir on Monday morning. Started filling it to the 20% mark on Thursday afternoon of last week. We let well 10 run all night, Thursday night, and then we shut it off about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. And we had a pretty good idea what we had left to do. We started pumping again on Monday morning. It took about another additional 4.5 hours and we hit that 3.8 million gallon mark. Um, it's full to the overflow right now. We're gonna pull the last back T sample tomorrow. Run it down to Othello and start that process, and then we're still waiting for the VOC testing to come back, which we're hoping will come back to either late next week or early the following. Once we have the good 100% back T and the VOC testing done, I believe we'll get a green light from Department of Health to go ahead and put it online.
All right. Anybody else?
As long as I got you, Rob, but I always like your report, but one of the things I was reading was the work that we're doing on the well out at the airport, which my numbering I can never remember. Is that well 11? It's
The
out,
new well,
yeah. So that one I was reading, that actually taps into a deeper aquifer than the other.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're,
It will eventually though,
well,
as the option to.
we're working through that process right now. Right now we're at right about 590 feet. And we hit a water bearing zone that's producing so much water, it was actually flooding out
Oh,
the drill hole.
yeah.
We've met with, the environmental attorneys that we used before. We're consolidating water rights this week. We've got some big questions that we want to ask ecology. And we're looking for some advice from them on a path. The ecology wants us to go into a deeper aquifer than where we already are. We're kind of want to take the stance of we got what we need right where we're at.
Gotcha.
So we're gonna go ahead and move ahead with the well testing, so we'll know exactly what we have, and then we're gonna re-meet with the legal team. And just, they have more experience in ask and what not ask to ecology to see if we can stay where we're at or reapply. For not change of use, just to basically change our point of withdrawal.
Interesting. Well, anyway, I continue to learn more and more about all this sort of stuff as I go, and you've taught me to start looking at this stuff a little more three-dimensionally. We've been focused mostly on preserving the water rights as a number,
Correct.
as opposed to making sure you have, multiple pressure zones, multiple sources for the water rather than tapping into one consecutive spot over and over type again. So anyway, it was interesting.
And that's another reason why we would like to stay in water bearing zone, because well 10, which is right at the reservoir, pulls out of the Grand Ron, and we'd like to stay away from that. So that we're not working inside of the same cone of depression.
Got it. That's what I was learning. So
Isn't part of it because it's such an optimum spot that they found that they really don't want to go anywhere else? That the water's good?
The ecology has their reasons, and we're hoping to learn more with having more conversations with them of what they have some information that they provided, but it doesn't seem like it. They're worried about affecting the wells in the area. And you draw a 8-mile circle around that well, and I think there's 6 wells in that area, and they're at 200 feet. They're domestic wells that are feeding houses. These aren't 500-foot wells. And so we're hoping to gain some more insight as to when this was negotiated for this new well to go into the Grand Ron.
there we go. Thank you.
A question, more on the code enforcement stuff. I appreciate the update that's in here. I think it's really good. I think overall you are covering a lot of the new projects, and I like that you leave them in there and kind of bold for us, like what's new. So that is super helpful. This maybe is not as much a Ron question, but I'm not sure. We had talked at one point in revisiting some of our code and helping, I guess, thin out things that maybe aren't as critical anymore, and adding some new things in cosmetically, things that we expect, downtown businesses to be sure is still appealing as people are coming through town. Where are we in that process? Can you just remind me?
A lot of that is dependent on, oh, sorry. A lot of that's still dependent on the SCJ and what their findings are and the goal setting process that we'll go through with the council
As
as
part of
they're
the,
getting more information in.
as part of the planning
Correct.
process, is it a comp plan? Okay.
Yeah.
So that comes when, timing wise?
Let's start doing public input.
Yeah, we will be looking at a few things. We'll be sending some stuff out, focus groups, probably in the next month or so.
Okay.
But that's more focused on that climate change, climate resiliency, code requirement that we now have to do. So it'll still be probably throughout 2026. However, E1 is working mainly on the downtown area and
Yeah.
focusing mostly on the Basin Street area from Oasis Park all the way in, and I'm hoping to have already started seeing some of the changes. But he is getting a lot of cleanup and
Yeah. Yeah, and especially using existing code, you can definitely see some of those. I think some of what we had talked about at one point is just making sure that that still matches kind of the, intent, I guess, for what we're hoping for long term, especially to appeal to more business and get people to stop in the summer, that sort of thing. So I don't know where that fits in timing wise, but I'd love to be sure that stays on the priority list so that even if it takes some time to get feedback and becomes part of a comp plan, we can at least implement some changes that we like to see in the short term. And then down the road, if it makes sense with other feedback, we can always amend it or change code, I mean, my understanding is we can change it as we need to, right? So.
You guys just tell us, hey, I want to look at this part of the code. And
Yeah, so maybe that's something we could do, in the shorter term. I don't know, maybe a first quarter project or something. Not that I don't realize you have a million projects priority. But it isn't a budget impact to have the conversation and at least make sure, council members are on the same page with where to start. Maybe just priorities so that it kind of helps with focus. So just a comment, I think, to make sure it doesn't get dropped.
so we would just need to know which codes you feel are outdated or no longer a best practice. And
Sure, yeah, I can pull up some of the stuff we talked about before.
yeah.
Yeah, I can share that again, yeah.
I know that's been a big topic of discussion with the Chamber of Commerce, especially this downtown area, what we can do code-wise to try and make it look better and keep people on on their honor of cleaning things up and not having the broken windows, the peeling paint, all those kind of things, what we can do and can't do. So I don't know, maybe we can get to a point where we can loop them in a little bit or get some public input on what the downtown business owners want to see, well, or people in general, and figure out what makes sense to do. I know there's some things we can't do. I mean, property owners have rights, but it'd be nice
You
if
have
we
a
could get it.
surprising amount of latitude in commercial zones compared to residential areas.
I think a lot of it's just basic cleanup. I know
Some of it's just the ability to enforce the codes we already have.
right.
Having E1 on now,
Right.
you'll start to see a lot of that.
And it is tremendously better than it was, for sure. So
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like that stuff isn't happening. I just don't want to lose sight. Like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think we can start small. If it's broken windows, let's address that and make sure that's in there so that that's something he can use as a tool to go say, hey, we can't have broken windows on Basin Street. Or even if many of the other arterials. Maybe something like that's a little bit lower hanging fruit. It's a little bit more obvious. I don't think anybody would disagree. Nobody wants broken windows and glass and that sort of thing. But that's just an easy example. There's probably, I don't know, maybe we pick 5 things as a priority to say, hey, let's add these, or 3 even.
I know one of the things that really came up was some of the neighboring towns have codes where you can't have, if you have a vacant building, you can't have it. They don't want it to look vacant.
Yeah.
So they will just do cosmetic things to make it look like it's occupied. And then you're required to have a contact name and phone number on the building door. So if there's an issue, and I think that would go a long way to keeping it cleaned up. So, anyway.
Well, thanks for the report.
Yeah,
I
it's
think, Ron, you probably right. It's good.
that that section actually came directly from you on.
Oh, wow. Pass thanks to him then. Thank you.
I had a lot of questions and thoughts about the fee schedule, but I was going to save that for that section of the agenda.
All right, off we went. Good. Thank you, everybody. Any other questions or comments on the committee reports? If not, we'll move on to the public hearing. Public hearing is open for the 2026 budget.
Consent agenda.
You thought you were going to get away from,
I know, not saying anything this council meeting. I have a pull up. So here is our updated numbers for the budget. This is matching what is in the ordinance. So looking at it as a whole, we kind of went individually through them at the last council meeting. Would you like me to go through them individually again? No. Okay.
I do not.
So we're looking at $35.5 million. I've assessed that. I know your guys' the reason you go up, Katie, the highlighted ones are property tax dependents. That's why I highlighted them. Those do equal the amount that is in the ad valorem taxes. That's the maximum we can do. So those all equal out. If you go to show council, you guys asked to look at beginning fund balances. I know this is a lot. I will break it down for you guys a little bit. So column C is the beginning fund balance as of 1/1/2025. This is directly from our annual report. Our column D is what we budgeted last year to use from beginning fund balance, whether it was rolling items over from the previous year or using a little bit of those reserves. Our column C is the E is the 2025 adjustments. Most of these are the 250 basin purchase. There is I put in park development, I also included, we are going to be rolling over REIT that we put in there in 2025. We're going to be rolling that over because we didn't do anything with the multi-use court. We expected that to be spent. It's going to be rolled over, so we're going to have an increase in beginning fund balance. So column F is the estimated ending fund balance for 2025. And then we get into the uses of beginning fund balance for 2026. 250 basin is a majority of that. So I've separated that out so you can see how much we're going to spend on 250 basin. And then column K is the additional amount. A lot of these are property tax dependent funds, cemetery, parks, streets are big ones, as well as we had projects on this year's budget that we are going to be rolling over to next year because we can't do everything we want all at once as we hope.
Why are you guys looking at me?
I'm looking at you.
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So
I thought it was this.
I include almost every year. I won't say every year. Almost every year, we estimate high on revenues, or we estimate low on revenues and high on expenses. So with that budgeting practice, you normally get an ending fund balance then at the end of the year because we budget that way so that we don't go over budget. We have to stay under budget. I did not include that common practice in that. I didn't go through every line that we're under budget on, put that in. That was just going to be overwhelming and it was going to add too much in there. So hitting some of those negative numbers, parks were under by 18,000. Feel pretty confident that we're not going to be at zero by the end of 2026. We'll either make a transfer, probably have ending fund balance at least of 20,000. I would say probably closer to 150,000 that will be rolling over. With water sewer operations, that one is at a negative. We are have used a common practice of putting all of the money into fund 2 or 424 and then moving it into the construction fund, moving it into the loan repayment funds. With that, our beginning fund balance is low because we do all of the transfers out. So my suggestion and what I have done is using some beginning fund balance, but also just not making transfers. We just don't make the transfers because there is higher beginning fund balances in those funds than there is in the water sewer operations fund. We can always also move money back from the water sewers construction into the operations if we would like to.
What's the benefit of having them separate in the first place?
It makes it way easier to, it makes it easier for me to be able to see everything by
Where it's coming and going?
When we budget, we budget operations versus capital.
Oh,
Just, it
to
just helps
track
us.
them.
We track them.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And for the state auditor's purpose, all of the 424, 425 through 429 all roll up into one anyways. Those can only, water sewer funds can only be spent on water sewer. They don't care if it's construction versus operations. So we could move it around in there as much as we want.
So when we have water sewer revenue coming in from billing, does that just go into the operational?
Goes into the operations.
Okay.
Yeah. I have it on here. Let me pull it up. So we've on the budget, we planned for 1.8 million to be transferred from that to 424 into other funds.
And the water sewer, those funds and the garbage, I mean, those have some pretty high beginning balances, but those are all restricted funds, correct? So that's all you can use them for. You can't use them for anything else.
And remember the garbage, we have the litigation that we've been.
Correct, yeah.
So the adjustments we're making here as it pertains to the I'm just going to call it the Rite Aid building just for simplicity. These are just for the initial capital purchase. Obviously, we haven't come into the scale of remodel or planning what we're going to do. Does that anchor us into a similar structure financially for that process too? Do we have the ability to be flexible, or are we starting to anchor ourselves into an exact, at least scale of design and usage?
No, so the 2025 is, we've spent that. That was the purchase.
Mhm.
The 2026 is looking at the design.
So this is the next phase then.
This is the
Got
next
it, okay.
phase, yes. Once we get into construction, then we might have to look at other uses. One of the big things that I would like to point out is that 19% that kind of is sitting all by itself. That is the 2026 estimated ending fund balance. So we're talking a whole 12 months from now, I get that. But our policy says that we want our ending fund balance, or our fund balance, our reserves to be 25 to 30% for general fund unassigned. Difference between 19% and 25% isn't going to bankrupt the city, but it is realizing that this is the direction we're going and we might have to make a policy change or change plans, one or the other.
Is that just unique to our policy, or is that mapping like a federal or state guideline?
It's mapping some guidelines. They tend to say, I think the GFOA, which is, it's federal financial officers. They say between 24 and 26%, 25%.
Is that on an annual basis or overall?
That's on an annual basis, and it's 25% of the next year's expenditures for the general fund. So if we're under that, then we're just not as healthy as everyone would say we can be. Talking with other cities, 25% is the goal. It's not the standard. So if we set that as a goal instead of our standard, it has been our standard. It just gives us a little more liquidity so that we can do things with 250 basin. We can do the things that we want to.
Keeping in mind, prior to the purchase of 250 basin, that number was significantly higher, like in the 60% number, I believe, correct? You were sitting on a 60% contingency fund, which was basically 3 times what you're sitting at now. So we've been planning for this. It came up and we jumped at that opportunity.
So part of the 19% is my understanding of what you're saying is 19% for 2026, but next year it could be back in the 25, it could be 19 again. But the idea is it is year to year. It's not because we know these projects are coming, we intentionally saved and spent this money right now. It should be lower. That is what we planned. And then going forward, the idea would be, I mean, you're not going to be purchasing this every year. The cost to finish it will have some impact, but as you go year to year, the number would fluctuate year to year based on what our decisions are. Is that?
And if it's a real big deal to you, we can sit on 250 basin for a year. We're budgeting essentially 10% of the hard costs of the architect's estimate to renovate both that building and this building.
Yeah.
Which is about 1.2 million.
So,
Have we decided what we're going to do with this building?
That's what we're budgeting for, is to have an architect come in, do design and engineering, giving us a set of plans based on what's the best use. We don't know we know what Eric needs. We know what we need. How do we make that fit best? Perhaps, I mean, our initial idea is, excuse me, we're moving City Hall and the police department over there, but doesn't mean we quit using this building. So what do we leave here? Or maybe it's just the police department that's moving over there and City Hall stays in this building. We don't know what's the best use of that space. So that's what we'd be paying for someone to help us with the design up.
and that 19% is to the end of 2026. The end of 2025, my estimation is closer to 30%.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I feel we are sitting good. I'm not super concerned about it. Now, if that number was 9%, now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous.
Basically, your 25% is 3 months worth of expenses, which is that's kind of the rule of thumb, but that plays into our bond rating as well, right? If we went in to do some kind of a loan on property or, I don't know. I mean, I know that's.
I don't know a whole lot about bonds. I haven't had to do a bunch of those. So.
Yeah, they look at you overall health.
Right. So if we were sitting at the 9%, we would be a much higher risk than if we're at 25 or 30%.
And it is a public hearing, so if there's anybody in the public that would like to make a comment on that, and that's why we have this open conversation. Anybody from the public? If not, we'll close the public hearing for the 2026 budget. We'll move on to ordinances. First ordinance is 2508, 26 budget.
Well, it's a bit of a finance show, just council meeting. So we have here the 2026 budget. This is the first reading of that budget. Kind of walked through all of this. We've had our 2 budget hearings now. It lists out all of our expenditures. We adopt our budget at a fund level. We can still move things around with GL. So if we need to add more supplies and take away from training, that's what we do at the lower level here, but we're just looking at totals here across the board. So this budget is $35,567,460. It has quite a few transfers from current expense, as well as most of the other funds. for that general capital fund so that we can use it to buy 250 basin. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, as it is the first reading, we also have the opportunity to move it to a second reading for any tweaks or adjustments that happen within the next couple of weeks. I think we'd like to get a motion to move ordinance 2508 to the second reading.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? More than we've had in the last half hour? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Ordinance 2509, the budget amendment. Already.
So this is the budget amendment for moving the funds from all of the funds to 301, which is our general capital projects fund. This is specifically for the $2.4 million that we spent. Not quite that amount. I liked a nice even number for the Rite Aid building. It will show all of the dollar amounts from all of the different funds. I'm asking for a expediency on this just because we knew this one was coming, told you there was going to be a budget adjustment. We'll have more budget adjustments for the rest of the budget next meeting.
But as far as this one's concerned, it's black and white, cut and dried, and you're asking that we move it into and adopt it as is. Okay? Need a motion of such?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Ordinance 2510, the amending of the EMC chapter 3.35.
This is the amending of the fee schedule and charges for city services. As a brief overview, we use CPIWBC straight from it's a .gov, it's the federal government site. I can't think of it. I think it's BLS. Yeah.
Bureau of Labor Statistics.
We've always used a very specific table. Leslie says that she's been using that table for 15, 20 years. This year with the federal government shutdown, that table is not available for September, which is always the month that we use. What I would like to do and what I've recommended is that we use August table, and moving forward, we stick with August. There tends to be more federal shutdowns while they're figuring out the budget. We can get ahead of it. As long as we're staying the same month, it's not going to make a huge effect to us. This year's August 2025 budget, or August 2025 CPI West BC is 3.4%. So as a general idea, all rates have been increased by that 3.5%. We also then rounded to the nearest 5 cents. Pennies are not being minted anymore, they're hard, and it's just causing issues. So it makes it really easy. We just round everything up or down to the nearest 5 cents, then it's not going to be an issue in the future. The exceptions to that are ERC rates were rounded to the nearest dollar, so the nearest 5 cents. Splash zone rates were rounded up to the nearest 25 cents. We have noticed an increase or a decrease of the amount of mistakes by just taking out an extra set of coins. They only have to deal with quarters for coins, and it makes life so much easier for our summer workers. Planning and zoning fees had 4 items removed that were removed from code in 2023. The plat alteration and amendment fee was increased to help cover the cost of the hearing examiner. And then the binding site plan fee was decreased because there's no longer a hearing examiner for that one. So it's pretty even swap there. And yes, any questions on those?
I had a question just on our water rate policy in general. This will probably be more for Ron, but our residential, single-family residential water rate table is identical to multifamily. So I've heard a couple of complaints from apartment complexes and things of that nature that, in essence, they're going to end up paying the same rate or potentially even higher than our other residents in single family if it's higher because they're tied to a larger pipe, obviously. Is that a common practice? Do you know, do most cities have identical rates for multifamily and single family, or is that unique to us, do you think? I know this is just to your knowledge, and I've thrown this in the fly, which I try not to do. I'm sorry, Ron, but
It is pipe size. It's not, yeah, so I guess in certain instances of multifamily, in many cases would have multiple, single, connections for the individual units. So I guess in a way it does vary, because of the units. I do believe though, when it is a multifamily unit though, we do break that out in, the usage, in the fees so that so each individual, multifamily is still, under that, ERU number. So I don't know if that.
well, like an example would be like the Basin Retirement Home. Essentially, they have one pipe in, one pipe out, water, sewer, etc. Theoretically, it's a lower cost to us to service a facility but we treat at least in our code, as though it's a bunch of individual units. And that's somewhat different than, like, we obviously have a different table for hotels. Is there a reason behind that, or is it? Don't know. It just is. Obviously, you've inherited a lot of this, but
It's not really, try not to look at it as, is it cheaper than to serve for single pipes? You're looking at how much water are they using and how much water are they flushing?
Mhm.
And so if you have a multifamily unit, well, they might have a 1 inch meter, which they're paying more than the 3/4, but they're serving 2 residences. So let's just say they have 2.7 ERUs per side. Well, you've got, let's just say 8 ERUs in a duplex versus 4 in a residential house that's using basically the same meter. So how much water are they taking? How much water are they flushing? So we're having to treat that water. So that's really kind of what you're looking at. It isn't.
you think it does scale down in this policy? It effectively does scale down to volume as opposed to
It's kind of what it
minimums.
comes to basically.
Okay.
It's how much they're using. You have multifamily on 1 meter. Well, so you can have basically 2 full-size homes on a 1 inch meter. They're actually kind of saving over the sense that they don't have 2 3/4. They've got 1 inch where there's a cost savings in that.
Okay.
And they're serving 2 families.
Okay.
Or 4, you might have an 1.5 inch meter. I mean, that you start going up in meter size, of course, it gets more expensive. But then you might have a 4-plex on an 1.5 inch meter. So now you're serving 4 full families. And we've got to provide all that same amount of water, and we're still taking it to treat it.
Sure. As long as I think the policy as it stands scales down to usage when we talk about that sort of stuff, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have like a apartment complex with 10 apartments and they're getting 10 minimums because they don't have, the correct.
I don't believe it's
Okay.
It's based on meter size.
Okay.
And like I can share, at least with new construction, you don't leave it up to the owner to decide what they put in there for a meter. We try to leave it up to the engineer. We make the engineer say, if it's a 4-plex, what do they got to have there? Because in the past, in my own personal experience, we've dealt with some slumlords that they want to put the absolute smallest meter in there they can. Well, now you're starting to get into health issues.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And if I could, I know there are some downtown businesses that have approached us recently because there's 1 meter in, but they have 3 tenants, 3 buildings. They're welcome to add during construction. If you have a triplex, you can put in 3 connections with 3 meters so that it's accurate and fair.
So if you want to put that money in up front because you don't think it's going to work out for you over time, that's an option. Particularly this one downtown, it's one large building, and over the years, it's been split into 3 smaller sections, and that they don't really have. I mean, they could jackhammer out a whole bunch of concrete if they
Right.
wanted to, but
As it pertains to commercial industrial, I think there's always, been a correct impression that those are going to subsidize the residential usage when it comes to the fee schedule. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have a policy in place where multifamily subsidizes single residents in practice.
it's related to you're trying to relate it to volume. Because that's really where our long-term costs are.
Thank you. Oh, I guess I'll keep going. What was the other one I was going to bring up? Well, this was a bigger topic of discussion from the retreat that we had discussed, a greater emphasis on code enforcement. So presuming that we need to obviously look at these quite closely to make sure we like the numbers that we had. The chief had brought up a really good point that there's potentially a situation where, particularly in other violations, our officers are becoming reluctant to enforce these numbers because they are relatively high for smaller infractions, creating obviously higher stress, tense situations with the officers, but also reluctance on the officers' part to want to issue the fines. Did you get a chance to look at those, Chief? Did you have opinions on where we're at?
I do, and actually I've got a spreadsheet in my office and I've been kind of going through code, trying to develop a plan how to address that.
Okay.
That is our next ordinance.
That's the next.
I couldn't remember which one was which, and my computer was down, so I had to guesstimate. But yeah, okay, we can hold off on that then.
Okay.
All right, so 2510, we need to move that to the second reading because there's going to be adjustments and not necessarily. Do you want it to fly now or move it along?
Doesn't matter to me either way.
Anything from council? Does council object to dealing with it now?
No.
All right. Need a motion to accept ordinance 25-10, the amendment to the EMC chapter 3.35.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Can we clarify, by rule, you have to make the motion, which includes the expediency clause, if you're trying to pass it in one reading, which is totally at the council's.
I think that's what they want.
Okay.
So we may need to
Yeah, should we
Just restate the motion.
restate the motion to include the expediency?
to
clause?
include the expediency clause. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 2511.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can we go back again? So whoever's gonna make the motion, we need the motion from that person.
Did the original motion.
I did.
I seconded.
Thank you.
We'll go back again or?
No, I think we're good now. We
Okay.
need it. Councilor Lehman's makes it with the expediency clause?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
2511, amending the chapter 1.04.
So this is updating the penalty EMC. Our council philosophy has been to make small incremental increases. This penalty has not been the EMC 1.04 penalties, which is civil violations, has not been updated since 2019. The thought process has been due to the additional fees that the state adds to the city fees. While we want penalties to be significant, we also want to be aware of the additional fees that the state adds and be conscious of the overall effect it has on our citizens. So in this ordinance, we have increased by the 3.4%. With that, we have included a attachment that shows the city fee compared to the total fee that citizen would pay. So for a C1, the city fees will be $641, but the total would be $1,314. So for our C20 fee, city would be $16, but the total would be $32.80. Part of the thought process with this is I've heard that that police officers aren't wanting to write tickets for the person that hasn't picked up their dog's poop on the ground because the ticket, I don't know which penalty it is. Do you know from the top of your head? No. I heard it was like $300. Well, that wasn't what the council at the time had wanted. They had wanted, we just weren't including the state fees. So this is a basis idea. I would really recommend that we bring this one to a second meeting at the very least. If you want us to do more research, we've been doing that. Chief and I have been talking as well as to what exactly your house's advisement is on this. Whether we want to lower our fees so that the state fees then are more reasonable. We could do that. We could do the math so that actual fee that we thought was the fee is what the total would be. We could do that math, change all of the numbers. Just depends on what you guys would like.
And there's a bit of a missing piece too, because some of your code violations have a designated penalty. So in your code, it will say like, picking up dog feces is a C8 penalty. If it's not designated, and quite a number of code violations are not designated, then it reverts to your default schedule that's in chapter 122. So you kind of need to know that context too. And I believe like the police department's been tracking some of those ticket issues where like there's the feeling that the penalty may perhaps it's higher than is justified by the activity. And so, council can go in, not just adjusting the C penalty schedule, but also designating perhaps different penalties based on those code violations.
That's kind of what I've been looking at is going through code, and then essentially I've constructed a schedule that converts the C penalty with the additional state penalty or fees included into it, and then adjusting that fee schedule to match. So, for instance, ATV, if you get caught driving an ATV without a seatbelt, it's a $289 fee currently. Under state law, it's $150 in a car. So then looking at the C penalty to make it equitable. So I'm working through that. What that's going to require is bringing the EMCs to council to adjust what the C penalty is for each of those violations. So,
Is the state fee a flat fee, or is it a sliding scale?
it's a percentage.
Yeah, it's 105% of your base penalty.
Okay.
So the table you have in here right now that says 2025 city total, 2026 city total. Are you saying that our fee today based on ordinance, I'm assuming is code or ordinance, is just for C1 to take the top one, 641, but the total that we're charging is 1314?
Yeah, so you have your base penalty and then your two public safety enhancement assessments, and that's at 105 in addition. So the penalty you control is the C penalty, the ticket that a person would walk out the door with
Is
would
both.
be that total with those assessments added.
I see.
And where it gets a little more complex is those penalties don't apply to every EMC either. So parking is exempt from those fees. So it's in everything else. So it's actually, we're looking at this thinking we could just change the fee. Well, it's complicated because those C penalties all through the EMC. So it's going to take looking at each section and addressing that. So
How did they get to this point? Is this like one of those things that over time and we just add some inflator and it eventually just gets to the number?
2007 is when the state instituted the PSE
I see.
A1.
So that's when it applied and we didn't pull down to offset it. Okay. Thank you. It's helpful.
So that's a lot of discussion and a lot of potential tweaks that go into that. Was the discussion tonight that we just had specific to chapter 1.04, or is this more of a global look at our codes that's going on?
Both. It's 1.04, which affects the global codes.
So why are we even looking at this? Why have we not tabled this and moved it into discussion and tweaking this?
Because I did these ordinances last week before we started these discussions. Writing this ordinance started discussions, and after it was already in the packet is when the discussions ended.
But it's nowhere near ready to rock.
If you guys would like, that's your guys' decision.
Well, I'm just looking at the options.
My professional opinion would be we go over it at least to the next meeting. We could rush through something in the next 2 weeks and get something ready for you guys.
But this is a policy decision that would be a council conversation as to what we want. So, I mean, respectfully, I think that we have to be talking about that here
I think every year
at this point.
yeah, I think it comes to you every year. In the past several years, because of this, the council has chosen not to raise them.
To try, oh yeah,
So I think part of this is part of the budgeting process. Like, we got to know, what are we charging? What can it be? And again, if council chooses not to raise the rates and to leave them, and then in the meantime, staff works through and tries to make adjustments and, back and forth with you, and then, you correct the EMC. But normal practice has always been to increase fees by that CPI inflator every year so that everything stays. So we're not just falling behind, so to speak.
We haven't increased this one for 6 years.
Right.
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, directionally, I don't know how big a discussion everybody wants to get into tonight, but it seems like it obviously needs a look. It's over double on many of these. Is there some detriment to just matching the state? I mean, I realize that would mean no revenue on some of these, or adding a percent increase, like a.
So in matching the state really isn't a direct correlation. There's
It'd be the state one
similarities. So
plus ours.
Not wearing a seatbelt is in a car is a RCW. Not wearing a seatbelt in a WATV is city code. So very similar. So, and that's the process of like, okay, if it's, the base penalty should be matched on that one. It's a matter of policy. But it is, so it's not, unfortunately, it's not that easy.
Right.
It does require that
Makes
code
sense.
review. So basically, if, the proposal is just to increase the base penalties by CPI. But there's the issue that there has been some complaints and concerns that your penalties right now are too high for the particular violation. So given that, if you want to put a pause on increasing by the CPI until you can do that more micro review of the actual issues, I think that would be the appropriate policy choice.
So that's tonight what you're hoping for from us, and then you guys will bring us, here's what we'd like to change in your code to make this make more sense. Am I understanding? I'm trying to get to like, what's the process for that?
It's, I believe it's one of Eric's SMART goals to complete a review of all that. But again, it's not something that's going to happen soon. It might be January, February, March. Before we can do that review and actually go through in that detail.
I'm trying to figure out how do we get you to what you need to get to the recommendation for us, so then we can fix it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the process for that timing wise that helps? So March is realistic. It's first quarter. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
What I would say is separate the issues. And do you want to increase by CPI right now? And if that answer is no, then don't make the motion and it fails for lack of a motion. And it just stays the same. And then we continue to work through and those details and we bring that back to you.
Okay.
Or yes, we want to increase it by CPI, but in 2 to 3 months, some of them might drop drastically. It's the council's prerogative. We're just trying to give you your options as a council.
I anticipate getting much more educated answer than I'm offering, but if I was going to give general guidance, I would entertain this coming back before council, not just without the CPI increase. I'd consider maybe we want to drop them by half because we are anticipating a little more enforcement than we were before. Those still look like pretty decent fines. I can't tell you which one ties to what, but those still look like pretty decent fines to be detrimental to the practice involved, but not so much that you're going to have pitchforks and issues that are justified if the fee is that far out of proportion.
So, just to be clear, I think it's two different things that we're asking you for.
Sure.
Well, we're asking you something and you're asking us something in return.
Right.
It's a little different. So
Right.
what we're looking for is direction of, do you want CPI increase? Because we haven't done it for 6 years? Or do you just want to leave it and then we're going to bring you something in a couple, next 3 to 6 months or whatever, then we'll give explanations of how all the C codes are going to be adjusted and why we're doing it.
Got it.
Essentially.
I feel like we need to just leave it alone for now, not take any action, knowing that we're going to review the whole thing in the next, whatever that is, 3 to 6 months. I mean, it makes no sense to go through and make a bunch of changes and have that whole exercise of changing code if we're really going into a deep dive into what these look like and what we're going to change it to. That's a lot of work for you guys that probably doesn't need to happen at this point. You're going to have enough on your plate going through everything to fix it anyway.
This isn't like budget. We can change it at any time we want to, right? Because it's an ordinance.
We say no CPI tonight. The
You could-
ordinance can change at any point in time.
Or,
But if you wanted to entertain it in January,
Yeah.
yes, you can change it at any time.
absolutely.
So if you had to bring it down to one sentence, do we move it to the second or we just abandon it or do nothing?
Well,
What are our options here?
so
There's no
take
motion.
no action, and then it just dies. Or you can move it to a second reading with the intent to review and adopt it at that second reading. It sounds generally like there's a consensus not to take action on this.
The vote it dies.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we move on or do we have to have a motion to that effect?
You can move on.
I think you technically called for the motion. There is no motion, and then mayor would say it dies for lack of motion, and then it is adopted.
You need a motion to move ordinance 2511 to the second reading? None heard, dies for lack of a motion. Case closed. Speaking of second readings, ordinance 2507, the ad valorem.
So this is the ad valorem tax. We had a public hearing for this at last council meeting. This is, the city is allowed to increase the revenues received from ad valorem taxes by 1% from the previous year's actual levy amount. This 1% is exclusive to additional revenues resulting from new construction and annexation. The 1% would be $14,897. This would help us maintain our level of service in parks, streets, the library, as well as the cemetery.
That's about it. Any discussion? If not, need a motion to adopt ordinance 2507, the ad valorem tax.
So moved.
Thanks, Matt. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Phil. Questions, comments?
The way I've always had this explained to me is that the property tax creates a revenue stream, kind of like the irrigation system. This is our option to withdraw the maximum amount from the pool. It's not technically raising any taxes or changing anybody's rates. And if we opt not to, it moves down the stream to a different municipality or organization, more or less. Is that correct?
Sounds
Okay. I like the way it sounds too.
We need more of those.
Close enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Resolution 2579, the MOU with WashDOT for the fuel purchase.
Mayor, councilors, the purpose of this agenda item tonight is to authorize the city of Ephrata to enter into an agreement with Washington State Department of Transportation for the purchase of fuel. For several years, the city's been purchasing fuel from a private supplier without a formal contract. Because of this, our fuel costs have fluctuated significantly, making it difficult to forecast the operating expenses and manage our budget. By entering into an agreement with WASDOT, the city would be able to join, the state's cooperative fuel purchasing program. The state is offering this to us at we would be paying 17 cents over their cost for their management of the program. They will provide all of our fuel cards. They will do all of our billing. They will do replacement cards. They maintain the pumps. We basically, it takes the city of Ephrata out of the fuel business. We have 2 antiquated tanks that right now that we maintain, that basically use not much better than a farm pump system for our day-to-day fueling. The state just updated their whole fuel islands through the card reader process. We can get both diesel and gasoline. We'll have 24-hour access, but we'll have to go in through a gate, but no different than we do now. And eventually we'll also be able to get DEF there as needed. Any questions?
Yeah, when you say a private, getting fuel private, was it like a negotiated wholesale, or have you always just been paying retail?
Basically, so over 3 years ago, we had a contract with Senate Service States, and that contract has expired. And I started paying attention to what we were paying for fuel, and at times we were paying more than retail. And I tried to question Senex Harbor States about it. I got a lot of, I don't know, and I'll look into that, and no phone calls. That really drove me to want to get. You start looking down at going into, if we were to try to purchase just off state bid, which is coal and oil, that's how the county gets their fuel. We don't have enough holding to take what their minimum drop off is. So then now we're going to go back and do competitive bidding. And with what the state was offering, we're basically buying it at state bid plus 17 cents. I thought that, in my opinion, that was a wise financial decision, especially with them providing all the.
So would you say the primary benefit of this change is financial or in organizational efficiency?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Would you say the primary benefit of this change is a financial one or in the organizational efficiency?
Both. I think when it comes down to going to going to get fuel in my truck, right now we're using a notebook with handwritten notes that you're writing down the gallons you got, what the master read total was, what vehicle was, what odometer. All of that information is going to be on the card lock. I go get fuel in my truck. I run my card. It knows it's my truck. It knows it's, I have to put my mileage in and I'll fill it up. And then at the end of the month, when we get the bill, we will have all that information provided to us on whatever format we choose.
Is the fueling location in question within the city limits, or do we have to leave town to find this?
It's statewide. We would technically be able to get fuel at any.
So it works off the card as opposed to a particular pump location.
Correct.
Got it.
I mean, basically we're anywhere there's a state shop, anywhere there's state pumps, we would be able to get fuel if we choose to.
Any DOT yard? Any DOT yard like down across from DK's? I'm presuming.
Yeah, that's where we would primarily, but we like Spokane. The access at the other yards might be different. We're going to provide them a lock for here. So the after hours fueling would may be different, but during business hours, if you can get to the pump, you would be able to buy.
These cards don't work at a random 76 station.
No.
Got it. Okay, that's what I was asking.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, it's fine.
Does that change anything for like commuting out of the area for like training or an officer going to Belia? Getting fuel?
It would still be my preference that we don't change that practice. I believe right now we issue them a credit card and they make all their purchases and track their receipts. It would be my preference that we just keep using that practice, and not try to send them to finding a state facility just because of the hours. I don't know that they would have access, and it just would concern me that all of a sudden you got a guy getting out of class at 5 o'clock. And we have given him no means of, this state.
This is just specific to local day-to-day fuel consumption.
Might ask staff to fill up the Suburban locally here at DOT because it's cheaper before you leave. But if you're in Seattle or Pasco or whatever, here's your credit
Big
card.
thing at the county, you don't dare pay retail when you can pay wholesale. Yelled at.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I respect it. I don't want to see a guy handcuffed out of town.
Yep, I agree.
Concerned. Staff's recommendation would be to adopt resolution 25-079, approving the memo of understanding with WASDOT as proposed.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The addition to the agenda, interlocal agreement with the Port of Ephrata.
As we discussed earlier, excuse me, you received an email this week with the RCA in it as well. The city and the port are looking to, and council previously approved an application to Department of Commerce CURB program, which Community Economic Revitalization Board for Economic Development Planning in partnership with the port. David and I met with the CURB director. You're not allowed to apply until you have a pre-application meeting with them to discuss the project. So we did that yesterday. A couple of changes from what you received in your email versus what is actually in the packet. One, the port will actually be the applicant because they are the property owner. Two, the city will put the RFP together simply because we have the staff and the capacity to do it. The process, though, of going through the RFP will be the same. The mayor, administrator, director, and commission president. And then the fifth party that will help us in that decision would be the executive director of the EDC. And the port will actually be the grant recipient and the grant manager. So essentially, instead of the port giving us 10,000 to cover the 20,000 up to $20,000 match, it'll be reversed. We'll be actually reimbursing the port half of that application and then working with them to put together an RFP for a consultant to come in and help us actually do economic development planning for an industrial park out at the Port of Ephrata.
All right. Questions?
I love to see the collaboration. I know that we've worked hard to get to this point, so thank you both, and to Dave as well. How does this, I guess, combine or consider the comp plan that we were just talking about, and kind of, I'm assuming that has some growth things in it, and they're separate plans still, but I'm just wondering, how do they overlap, if at all?
Currently, the comp plan just has goals of economic development pretty broad. This falls right in line with what you currently have, and then
Supportive of that goal.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
No, I'm very excited. The port has long been our most untapped resource, and Dave's leadership should be applauded. He's done a great job of getting our name out there and getting a lot more feelers than I can remember in a long time.
All right. More questions? Need a motion to accept resolution 25-80 with some minor changes to it.
So moved.
Thanks, Phil.
Second.
Thanks, Matt. Questions? All in favor?
I wasn't quick.
Aye.
I
Opposed? So moved.
Apologize, Mr. Mayor. I realized I forgot to point out something for ordinance 2510. You guys have it, I gave it to you guys on there. We added a fee to the fee schedule that I did not include in the packet. It is the ERC string light use with setup and takedown. I just wanted to make sure that it's on the guys, and I forgot.
that's this one you put.
Did we approve it with that in there? We're good. You don't need a second motion. Okay.
Just wanted to make sure we didn't skip anything.
Yeah.
Just a guilty plea. Thanks, Kristen. Items for council action, the ERC fee waiver application appeal.
Yes, in front of you, you see we had an application from the Civil Air Patrol asking for a waiver of the ERC rental fees so they could host their annual banquet awards. In the application, they specifically stated that it was not open to the public. That is one of the requirements in policy, is that the event must be open to the public. So they're now appealing that to you. Since again, that's a value of the industry, make an exception to your policy.
And I will add that this does run up to the issue of prohibition on gifting. It's prohibited to gift city property or funds, except to the poor or the infirm. Again, so it's the question of whether this application or the banquet would meet that definition, because it's not open to the public. And the council, in order to qualify for the fee waiver, it also needs to serve as a benefit to the community, in line with the council goals. So again, the council policy and the code, I think from a legal perspective, I would not support the request for the fee waiver.
Is there any general precedent when it's a borderline intergovernmental arrangement? It's something like this, they're certainly government adjacent at the Civil Air Patrol.
But they're not a government. They are still, even though a nonprofit, they still are a private institution.
The reason it has to be open to the public is because it has to be a public benefit or service.
Correct.
And even though they're a nonprofit, it's not. That's what you're saying. Okay.
How much is the fee?
$600. Wasn't it $600?
Wait, what day of the week is this? Is it during the week or is it on a weekend?
It was a Thursday.
Thursday, so it would be $600.
Is the fee currently waived, or does it not need to be waived when it is public? So like when the Red Cross has an event down there, is it already pre-waived because it's a public event, or do we have to?
So if the Red Cross is the sponsor, they would need to apply for it. There may be city events where, the city is hosting an event that it wouldn't need to be applied for the fee waiver because it's a city event and necessarily part of the city public purpose.
Would they be open to making it open to the public? I mean, I guess, is it a conversation that we can have with them so that they understand if you make this open to the public, you would actually be eligible for the waiver? And then, of course, who wants to go to the banquet? Probably just them.
Well, and
So-
it has to be open to the public
And for the benefit of the
so they
public.
wanted to
Okay.
include some, open to the public educational element.
Gotcha.
Airplane safety.
That could do
Okay.
it.
Let's make this real simple. I'd like the council to not accept the appeal, to let it go, and we'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. This is too much for such a wonderful organization. So don't accept it. I know it's hard. It's a tweener. So just don't take the appeal and let's move on. Right?
When you say you'll take care of it, you're opting to pay for that out of your.
I am doing that.
Okay, I'll split it with you.
No, you won't.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anything else?
We do need action on the appeal, so if there's a
Need a motion to accept the appeal.
to deny.
Deny.
I move to deny the appeal.
To deny it. Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Done? Anything
you,
else,
Bruce.
Raymond?
Thank you, Bruce.
Meeting adjourned.